Okay, we're streaming now. Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks. I am happy to be streaming once again, and it's been a while since I've been in the studio too. But the off season is kind of like that. I kind of plan things out, so I am not working so hard in the off season. It's to give my family a break and everything. But thanks for joining me on the live streams. Happy to talk Bucs football because we've been through quite a eventful few weeks with Bruce Arians and all the coaches that have come in, and now we're gearing up for free agency. And the Super Bowl hadn't even happened yet. So I love that we have so much to talk about and so much to discuss. I know you guys have been keeping track with it with Pewtercast and Real Bucs Talk, all the podcasts that are out there. I personally love how the Bucs fan community has grown so much, and the fan creator community. And I'm excited to show you guys. I have with me now via Skype Tommy. It's Tommy Travis, right, Tommy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tommy Travis, who is creating his own channel called All Hands Galley. So here, I'm going to transition there to the window to show you guys his handle. So make sure you follow him because he's about to start a YouTube channel where he's going to break down film. And he's a big, huge Bucs fan and has been a long time subscriber to the Play Reaction. So first of all, Tommy, thank you for all of your interaction with my channel and all the things that you've been doing to interact with me. But I am super excited for you to be on here, and you can talk about your channel, and we can talk Bucs football together. So thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everything that you post out on Twitter. I get a lot of my information from you, and thank you for your videos. I mean, they're very informational. Out of a lot of the YouTubers out there, you're one of the best, and I mean that wholeheartedly.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're definitely one of the most up to date. A little bit about myself. I'm a medically retired veteran, U.S. Army. Did 8 years. Did 2 tours. I know you guys wanted to ask. I'm a stay-at-home dad. Homeschool my kids. The education system here in Florida ain't the greatest, so I'd rather teach them myself. But other than that, I've been a Bucs fan since about '95 when we got Brooks and Sapp. And other than that, like you said, I'm starting my own channel here in a couple months. I'm in the process of moving, so once that gets settled, I'm gonna start my own YouTube channel breaking down film. Most likely, it won't really fully get started until this upcoming season, but like I did say, it's going to be breaking down film each week on the Bucs, on their good, their bad, and whatnot, and it's going to be called All Hands Galley.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I was telling you offline that I love the accounts that break down film because that's just something I can't do. I never played the game of football and I didn't learn how to break down film and everything. So I get all my information from guys like Trevor Sikkema and the guys over at Real Bucs Talk and Stephen Shea, those guys who break down film so well. So I'm looking forward to you building up your channel. And we've got a lot of guys. Thank you guys for those who are joining us right now. Savage Man, Bailey, Buccaneers, hashtag Super Bowl 37 champs. Such a long name. Hate saying it, but thank you for joining. Bucksman13, Savage Man, Xander. You guys are awesome. I see some of you guys are asking already about players, Greedy or Byron, and things like that. We'll get to that. Let's ease into things here. Tommy, I would love to since you're a brand new guest and you've already mentioned a little bit about it, you kind of brushed over your history as a Bucs fan, but I would love to hear more about why you became a Bucs fan. I know you live in Florida, but then also what was the moment you fell in love with this team?
Uh, when in '95, I first started playing Pee Wee football, and I asked my dad who was the closest football team, and he told me it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I was like, wow, that's a pretty sweet ass name. And so I started following them. And then in '97, I believe it was when we drafted Rondé, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was '97, and he made a play, and he started pointing to his back of his name, and it made me really, yeah, exactly, right there.
Yep.
he started doing that, and that made me fall in love with the game. Like it made other people realize that there's another Barber in this game, because everybody was giving love to his brother
Right.
Tiki, and it brought love to the Bucs. And another play that really, I was already in love with the Bucs, but the one of my favorite plays of all time was when Mike Allstott ran over every single Cleveland Browns player in 2002, and I was at that game.
Oh, nice.
I showed up late, but I was able to make it to the game, and the play lasted just like John Gruden said in that documentary that we both watched, like we talked about. The play lasted 5 minutes. that
Yeah, it definitely seemed like that for sure.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, that was such a, and I love watching the highlights. They come up every once in a while, like on Twitter or Facebook, of that particular play, and it just makes me smile every time. I mean, it's like super nostalgic for me seeing that play because man, you don't see players like that anymore, and
No,
he was special.
and he was not just a power back. I mean, that's what he was 95% of the time. But he was able to shake people at some moments. You were able to see him juke people out, and he did have good hands in the passing game too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Man, it was just a special team, and we just passed the anniversary of the Super Bowl win, and we haven't won a playoff game since. We haven't been in the playoffs since '07. But man, every time this time of year comes around, I I watch at least part of the Super Bowl DVD. I kind of sit back and reflect on where I was and what I was doing during that time and how happy it made me. Where were you during the Super Bowl win?
I was 14. I was a freshman in well, no, I was 13 going on 14. Wait, no, 14. I don't know. Anyways, I was a freshman in high school,
Yeah.
and I knew we were gonna win. I remember I was at my mom's house. My parents were divorced. I was at my mom's house watching the game, and I remember from the very beginning, I was like, "Oh, great, here we go." Once Johnson threw that interception to Charles Woodson, but then once Simeon Rice got that sack on third down, that's when I knew, okay, our defense can hold them.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Our defense proved it. What
Yeah.
about you? What about yourself?
I was a junior in high school, and I was up here in Georgia, in Falcons country, and I've tweeted this before. Everybody that year was so excited about Michael Vick, and talking about how he was going to take them to the Super Bowl, and they had the best player in the league, blah 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 blah, and he was fun to watch. But man, that year was just so special because I saw them shut down Michael Vick twice.
Yes.
And then I got to watch the Super Bowl with all my friends who are Falcons fans, and just stand up and cheer pick after pick, saying "number one offense, my butt" to Rich Gannon and all that stuff. It was glorious. And then for the entire year, rest of the year, I had my Bucs flag attached to my car window, and I never took it down. I was just
Oh,
so happy to wave that flag.
you got to. It's a year. It's a year's worth of bragging rights.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's even better when you live in a rival city. Of course, that was the first year they were in the same division as the Bucs, so the rivalry wasn't there, but they were still definitely not happy with me because I let them know. And I miss those days, man. It's been so long since we've had a team that we could brag about, a team that we could, you know, um, wave proudly. Now, every time somebody finds out I'm a Bucks fan, they're just like, "Why?" And it makes me sad. I understand why they asked that question because we haven't been good in such a long time. But I'm hoping that Arians can bring us back to the promised
Well,
land.
weren't you saying when we got here, when we got Arians, that a lot of your coworkers were kind of congratulating you on that?
They were, and I think they were humbled a little bit because of the Falcons season this year. Um, but to me, that was a big sign that we got somebody good because when Shiano was hired, people were laughing at me when Lovie Smith was hired. I feel like it was a little bit. He carried a little bit more clout, but there wasn't the amount of like, oh man, we might be in trouble kind of attitude that I got from the Falcons fans than I got this time. I think they're definitely concerned now. They're like, oh, he might actually bring them back. I haven't run it, and I even have friends of other teams who are fans of other teams. Like I have a 49ers fan who's like, dang man, and this is a guy who always talks trash to me. He's like, I can't believe y'all got Arians. That's huge. So that's obviously raising the hype train for me. And what's funny is I told myself I would not get hyped up this offseason, but that was the one thing that could do it. So, what did you feel about the Bruce Arians hire? Were you the same way?
I was ecstatic. I at first I was like, because of his age, and there were some things that I wasn't sure, and out of the other coaches, I just wasn't sure. Once I started doing research on him, and because I kind of felt like it was another Lovey, because when I was still in the military when Lovey Smith was hired, and all I could hear was like, oh, he's a player's coach, and the players love to play for him, and yada yada yada. That's what I was starting to hear at first for Arians, and I'm like, well, I don't want to just have that same type of thing again.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. They don't just want to play for him; they love to, and they play better for him. They play better because I'm gonna here soon lift off some free agents where we might go get that played for him, and when they played for him in bowls, they played better.
Yeah. Yep. I'm really excited for bowls. I'm really excited just for a completely different look for this team. It's needed, and this I think is a good transition as to. I would love to hear your thoughts on how different will this team look. Like, who do you think is leaving? I mean, you have the guys like Gerald McCoy, who are kind of on the fence. We don't know what's going to happen to him. Are we going to go to a 3-4 base? And obviously, guys like Brent Grimes and Deshaun Jackson's probably out. But what do you think? How different do you think this team is going to look this year?
Okay, I got a list right here.
All right, let's hear it.
Cut D-Jax.
Yep.
Possibly Curry, Grimes, Bo Allen, Mitch Unrein because he didn't play all year. Restructure or cut GMC. Resign Hump. Sign Quan to a 1-year prove-it deal because there's no way they're going to give him. They might give him a 3-year deal, but it's not going to be worth much money. They'll probably end up giving him a 1-year prove-it deal. I would franchise Donovan Smith because I think with the better coaching, I think he'll get better talent. You'll get better production, because the talent's there. But I think when you have somebody in his ass, or sorry, in his face.
That's not a great visual.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. In his face, But the only thing with Curry, he is not. I mean, he got beat out by Carl Nassib, but Curry, he still is a good, decent pass rusher. It's just that $8 million sitting on the bench is not. That's a lot of money to sit on the bench.
Yeah.
So and another thing, when Arians took over in Arizona, he replaced 15 of 22 starters.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. Now, he may not do that here because of the talent level is better, but be in for, a surprise.
Well, and that's the thing is, we think we know the talent level, but what do we know? I mean, I thought this is 3 years running some of the most talented teams we've had, and they've fallen short every year. So, and I think a lot of us were in that same boat. And obviously that's ultimately why Cutter was fired, because we have the talent to win in a lot of people's opinions, and he couldn't make winners out of this team. I like the list you have. It's hard to say who I would and would not get rid of because obviously the numbers go into it. I mean, it's a numbers game with a cap and everything. But I don't necessarily agree with, or don't necessarily disagree with any player you mentioned there. I think what it will come down to is, these coaches are taking the time right now to view all the tape on all of these guys, like Gerald McCoy, like Quan Alexander, all these guys that might be up in the air, like Donovan Smith. And it will be interesting to see which players they dub as worth keeping and which players they dub as not worth keeping. And I have a feeling we won't be surprised when they have that final list, whatever that looks like. I know you mentioned Donovan Smith. I I I have I've been a big Donovan Smith supporter until this season. The last part of this year is just like, okay, he's had 4 years. He's had his time to be less inconsistent as he's been his whole career, to be that stud left tackle that we thought he could be, and he hasn't done it yet. Now that could be coaching, it could be, and if anybody can bring it out of him, one would hope that it's Arians and his staff. But sometimes guys just, it's all up here, and I just don't know if Donovan has it. Now, if we franchise tag him, I think I might be okay with it, just as a, hey, we have somebody we know at least can do a decent job as we try to find his replacement.
That's yeah,
If it's under those kind of conditions, obviously you wouldn't tell Donovan that, but if that's what they're thinking, then I could kind of understand it.
yeah, exactly. Because my theory is the next best option is Trent Brown off of the Patriots, and he's gonna want a big salary, and you don't know how good a player coming from the Patriots is going to be, because usually when Belichick gets rid of players, it's at the end of their prime.
Yeah.
Luckily, we got Logan Mankins and he was still decent at the end of his career.
Yeah.
But usually players, when they leave New England, they're not any good anymore.
Yeah, they've done such a great job up there of really deeming guys not worthy of their team, and suddenly those guys drop off the face of the earth. I don't know. I mean, that's why they're so great. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they're so great, is their talent evaluation has just been unbelievable. And the thing about free agency too is, and we can start talking about some free agents that we might like here, but you're going to have to overpay for anybody you get. And we did that last year with, like Vinny Curry, Mitch Unrein, Bo Allen. And I'm wondering if we have, or what kind of holes we will have on this team that will warrant the overpayment of someone. Like, who is going to be available that you feel like would be worth overpaying?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
That.
Well, and as we get closer to free agency, we'll probably, I mean, the Super Bowl hasn't even happened yet. So as we get closer, in the next month or so, we'll start seeing guys getting dropped or cut, surprisingly. And free agency, and this is why you built through the draft, because I feel like free agency is more of a crapshoot than draft is, because you're throwing all this money at these guys who have proved it on the field, quote unquote, but they got cut for a reason.
Yeah.
And usually the guys that do the best are guys who are cap casualties, or it's a guy who was cut because a new coach came in and he didn't fit his scheme, which we've cut players for that and they've gone on to do great. So
Well,
we'll see who we cut and what kind of holes will be there. I feel like offensive line already has the holes that might be necessary to overpay somebody. But with Light's track record on free agents, I don't know. It will be interesting to see the Bruce Arians effect on that.
Well, and another thing to think about is, like, if you did you listen to Keith Armstrong, our special teams coordinator, his conference?
Yeah.
Well, he mentioned William Golston as a guy that he had to make sure he had to watch out for on special teams. So that makes me think he wants him on special teams. He's netting a $3 million or $4 million contract sitting on the bench as a backup defensive end, defensive tackle. I don't know if they'll be able to restructure him to just play special teams.
Right.
With this new special teams group and defense by Todd Bowles, guys who were backups last year may have bigger and better roles this year flying to the ball. That it's going to be so much different, because I think we're going to see a lot more of what they ran in Arizona, having instead of when we're in nickel having two linebackers having two linebackers at the two linebacker positions, only having one linebacker
Yeah.
and have a safety in there.
Yeah, that's the other thing about having a completely new coaching staff is there's so much that goes into decisions as to whether or not to cut a player, whether or not to sign a player. And with our coaches that we had for a few years, we kind of got to know the tendencies of like, oh, that's a Mike Smith guy, that's a Dirk Cutter guy. We'll probably see him come in. With a brand new staff, we don't know them as well, and we don't know their scheme as well. So I guess that kind of makes it just more of a wild card. Um,
Yeah.
and and you went over your list. One guy you mentioned that I would really love to see back, and I don't know if it's possible, especially cap wise. I don't know if it's worth the money, but a lot of debate is going on, and I saw it a little bit on the chat of um, Adam Humphries
Oh
and
God.
whether or not he'd be worth the paycheck he's getting if he's going to be the number 3 receiver. And
Well, I
I,
got a light on that
okay, yeah,
after.
go for it.
Well, here, um, if we got so if Deshaun Jackson is our speed receiver, right?
Yeah.
So if we cut him, that's $10 million. We sign Humphreys for 7. We signed John Brown, who's a speed receiver, who this past year had 42 catches for 715 yards and 5 touchdowns from Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson. Okay,
Hmm.
we signed him for 1 to 3. That's 10 million right there.
Okay.
I've been doing my homework a little bit.
I like that. So are you saying? Sorry. So are you saying would you keep Hump if you sign him? Would you keep Hump or no?
I would keep Hump. Yeah, I would get rid of Djax
Okay.
and keep Hump and sign him for 7 million,
Okay.
and
I'm
then
following you now.
yeah, and then get John Brown as the speed receiver for the 1 to 3 because he's cheaper because he's not as good.
Right. Yeah. I do think that there are speed receivers that are available that we could go and get, but there will be a talent dip with Deshaun Jackson. I mean, he is an elite speed receiver still, and it sucks that he didn't work out here. But I'm wondering if I would not be surprised to see us go after a former Cardinals receiver like John Brown. Um, but I'm wondering if a whole lot of attention will be paid to the wide receiver position. And the kind of the point with Adam Humphries is, yeah, okay, you say 7 million for him. Is that amount too much for a guy who might end up being a number 4 receiver if you sign John Brown or another speed receiver?
That's true. That's true. I didn't think about that.
I mean, and it's silly of us to kind of assign value to a guy who may or may not play a certain amount. Like we don't know how they value what attributes behind the scenes. But one reason I brought up Hump is that you can look at his impact on the field, but there's also his impact in the locker room, which I feel like people don't make enough of a deal about. And this goes to Quan Alexander too, where I think Quan's going to be back. I think we're going to sign him. I don't know if it's franchise. I don't know if it's whatever we structure it. I feel like we will bring Quan back just simply because his absence from the locker room hurts this team. And it's one of the glue guys, right? And I know that Adam Humphries is one of those glue guys, just based on what I've heard, what I've read, and the fact that Jameis loves him so much. If you remember, I think it was after Jameis' first year, or maybe it was after his second year. It was probably after his first year. It was like Jameis called out like the locker room a little bit, and he said we have guys on this team who don't care about losing, and you have the guys who hate losing. And he called out Adam Humphries by name and says he is a guy that hates losing, that wants to win. And I feel like there's just a big factor there when it comes to signing and re-signing players that we overlook. And I wonder if Hump is one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm desperately afraid that we're gonna lose him to either Atlanta or
Yeah.
even New England because Julian Edelman is getting old, and I could see Belichick wanting to replace
Oh man.
were playing with Humphreys, because not that Humphreys is as physical, but he is as sure-handed as Edelman.
Yeah.
I believe so. In my book, he is, because he was taking. I mean, that shot he took in Dallas
Yeah.
and held on.
Well,
I mean,
he's Jameis's security blanket for a reason,
yeah,
and that's kind of what Cam Brate was before this year. So, um, man, it's funny the thought of Adam Humphries going to the Patriots. That would just be so fitting. Did you hear? This is a complete tangent, by the way. Did you hear about Shiano potentially going to New England?
I did not hear that. No.
There's rumors that Greg Schiano would go to New England to replace Brian Flores as his defensive coordinator,
Oh,
which would
gosh.
just be so fitting because if you remember when he was coach here, we were basically the Patriots farm team.
Yeah.
So there's that relationship is so tight with him and Bill Belichick that I could totally see that happening. But anyway, watch him go to the Patriots and then like win a Super Bowl as defensive coordinator, become head coach again. That would just be perfect in like a
Yeah.
horrible way.
He was the one that gave him Blunt, and what did we get for Blunt? That running back that wanted to play track, that wanted to run
Oh,
track.
Jeff Demps, yeah, from Florida, former Florida Gator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Second man in the world to Usain Bolt.
right. Yeah. Oh man, good times. So, anyway, looking forward, is there anything else you want to talk about by way of like players you want to bring in by a free agency?
Yeah. Tevin Coleman, because of the running back position. Tevin Coleman, I would really, really, really like to bring him in, because we really need a receiving back. I figure if we don't bring in any big name, if we try to work on the O line and get the O line situated and get the D line, if we can draft, say, Ed Oliver in the first round with the 5th pick, and then use the 2nd and 3rd round picks on O line to shore up that and with depth, and then coaching helps out with that. I hope we can go after Tevin Coleman in free agency and add that to our passing game, and hopefully Rojo learns something. And
Maybe.
yeah, I'm not giving him the bust label yet. I think
Right.
it's because of opportunity, but it's close though. Damn it,
Yeah.
Uh,
And you've been following this channel for a while. I was not thrilled with the Rojo pick, and
yeah,
I'm of course not going to label him a bust. I am so hopeful he can flip a switch, or one of the coaches can help him, become the guy he was at USC. But oh man, I mean, for him to play like that as a 2nd round pick, that's not a good look.
yeah, yeah. No, no.
But I agree with about Tevin Coleman. I would love to have him here. Pairing him with Peyton Barber seems to be like actually a really good fit. And
Yeah,
I know a lot of people that kind of the trend had the pendulum has swung the other way. The NFL used to be you never draft a running back super early because they don't make a difference. It's kind of swinging back to, hey, let's get this superstar running back in the top 10 and he's going to change your team. I still kind of in that old mentality of, yeah, it'd be great to have Saquon Barkley. It'd be great to have Ezekiel Elliott. There's no doubt that they are game changers, but at the same time, you can still win with running backs that aren't 1st round picks. Now, I say that, and usually I use New England as an example, but here they have a 1st round running back on their Super Bowl team. So maybe there's something to that. But I love the idea of Tevin Coleman paired with Peyton Barber, and assuming this offensive line will get better, because let's be honest, it has to.
yes.
Our offense might be just fine with just that.
I think so. I think you might be right. I think I'm hoping. I really hope it's just the coaching that really needs to just get in their butts and get some fire up in
Yeah.
them.
I mean, that's across the board too, and that's another thing that's exciting about this coaching staff is Bruce Arians is an OBS kind of guy, and I assume that these guys that he's bringing on are on that ship as well. So, um, is there anybody else that you're thinking about or that you want to bring up about free agency?
Uh, Obviously Honey Badger, but that's a given.
He's a glue guy. He's a locker room guy. If you have you seen the All or Nothing with the Cardinals?
Yes, yes.
I mean, they talked about in that show, like all the players, whenever they talked about Tyrann Mathieu, like he was one of the most beloved players in that locker room. And that's the kind of personality you need on a winning team, I think. So he's kind of fallen off a little bit because of injuries and stuff, but I still think he's got a ton of talent, and he's the kind of locker room personality you would want. So
Well,
I'd love to see him here.
one thing too about that, he's had those two major injuries, but the years after he had those injuries, he's come back strong as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's like Quan. You know, I said when we were getting ready for this, is like if you doubt that Quan is not, if you doubt that he's going to be ready by training camp, like you don't know Quan. He got a late ACL tear, and he is working his butt off right now, and he's aiming for training camp.
Yeah,
So
he's been showing off all these videos of him doing leg presses, and then today, right before our live stream, about 20 minutes before that, he was doing squats.
yeah. So maybe it's an LSU thing. I don't know, but you know that there's just you see the heart in guys like that. So I would love to have Tyrann Mathieu on this team, especially because we need a bunch of secondary help.
Oh yeah, but other than that, I don't really have any. One note: we cannot get David Johnson. If anybody in the chat has been asking about David Johnson, because they have a huge cap hit. It's like a couple $1 million if we were to somehow trade for David Johnson, just in case anybody's asking.
I am a huge David Johnson fan, and that's a pipe dream, man. I'd love to have him on this team, but that would just be so dumb of Arizona to give him up.
He was a 3rd-round pick, so
yeah. It's really funny that they wanted, who was it? They wanted a different running back, and then they ended up drafting David Johnson instead because he got picked before they could pick Detroit running back Amir Abdullah. Yeah, Amir Abdullah.
Hey, we also might be signing Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. I don't know if I want to go down that road until we have to.
Well, I don't know about. I'd rather stick with Tevin Coleman and not deal with that kind of drama. Because, to be honest, Damian Williams and Darnell Williams, the two backup running backs for KC, were doing just fine.
They were, which, you know, maybe that's a sign that it was more of a system thing. But, I mean, I do like Kareem Hunt on the football field as far as his talent is concerned. It's clear he's a good running back. But, man, again, I don't want to go down that road just yet.
Like I believe in second chances, but I just don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, not until we have to. So let's move on. Let's move on to the draft. So you have your kind of free agency plan there. So, and you mentioned Ed Oliver in the first round. So kind of lay out what you would like to see in the draft this year.
Now, if during free agency, some reason we get rid of Gerald McCoy, we definitely need to draft Ed Oliver. Or if Quentin Williams slides to us, we need to draft him, because that needs to be the replacement. Now, if we somehow keep Gerald McCoy, I think we need to trade back and get as many trade picks as we can. Possibly draft an offensive lineman in the first round. I haven't been doing too much research on O linemen, but I know that there are some. So I would go first and second round O lineman if we do keep Gerald McCoy.
I'm always a big proponent of, like, you just can't go wrong with drafting defensive line and offensive line as much as you can. It would be kind of weird to see us draft a defensive tackle the year after we drafted a defensive tackle in the first round, but pairing those two together could be pretty crazy. And it's kind of making me salivate a little bit seeing that how much that would help the pass rush. And then also Quentin Williams. I don't know a whole lot about him yet either, but you know, from what I've heard, you know, if you get a guy that can come up behind JPP and learn, and I do feel like we need to bring in whoever is going to replace, you know, JPP on the end so we can be fine when he retires in 3 or 4 years. He's probably not going to be here for much longer, just because that's how that position goes. I mean, of course, there's outliers there, but usually guys will go to their mid-30s as elite defensive ends go. So I could
I
definitely see that.
I think if I think Noah Spence might start pushing out for that defensive end position if he can get on the field more.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shot in the dark. It's like one of those things where we know the talent that Spence has. We've seen it before, and then we saw the regression, and then it's like the logical conclusion is, maybe just his coaches were holding him back. But kind of what makes me balk at thinking that Spence can come back from whatever cellar he's in is that of all the problems with the coaches we had under Dirk Cutter's regime, Brenton Buckner is a very respectable defensive line coach, and I was kind of surprised to see us let him go, but he was like, you know what, Noah just can't get his head out of his butt. Like, he needs to work harder. He needs to, whatever. He was saying that Spence has this talent that he's not tapping into. And so that's a red flag for me. So I'm not going to hold out hopes that suddenly a change to 3-4 or change of scheme is going to awaken Noah Spence, because I think it might be in between the ears more than anything. But you never know.
Maybe I didn't hear that. Thank you for that. That's interesting.
I don't know. I can't remember when it was, and I'd have to dig in order to find a quote. But I do remember Buckner talking about Spence and just being like, you know what? He's getting in his own way.
That's such a shame because, man, I remember when those pictures he was showing off this past offseason.
Yeah.
He was looking like, he was looking like 10 and a half, 11, 12 sacks easily.
Right. Yeah. And just who knows what it is? I mean, you can never truly know, because I mean, he can look the part, and he can look the part even in training camp. But then once those lights come on, people disappear. It just happens. So, and that's what we've seen so far from him.
I know, from one thing, from watching him in training camp, because I wasn't able to go this past training camp, but I was watching James. He would videotape him.
Yeah, Mr. Bucs Nation.
Yeah. I was watching him, and then watching during the games what little time that Spence would get on the field. It seemed like he didn't know whether to use his bull rush, which he doesn't really need to because he's not that big.
Yeah.
He needs to use his more spin or his slaps, but he doesn't seem to know which ones he needs to use when he needs to use it. It seems like in college, I guess he got away with his bull rush more because it was smaller guys. And he's so used to it now. He's playing in the NFL. You can't do that.
Well, yeah, and that's a problem with a lot of guys who come in to the NFL. Is like they had their one move that was their money move, whether it was a bull rush or if it was a spin move, like going outside. I'm blanking on who the end was. Maybe it was Daquan Bowers. But there was an end that we had where all he maybe it was Gaines Adams. It may have been that far back, but there's been ends we've had in the past where they had that one move where they just kept going outside and could never come back into the quarterback. They would never have an inside move, and that ended up being their demise. I wonder if that's a situation with Noah Spence, if he just has that one move and he can't figure out how to be good at another one. I don't know.
Daquan Bowers, I don't know how many chances we kept giving him.
Yeah. We let him go and then re-signed him at one point. So
yeah.
Yeah. So apart from obviously once you get past the first couple of rounds, it's just a crapshoot as far as who we would target. But is there a position you want to see us address in the second and third day of the draft?
Second and third day, I think big on linebackers. I think you can never have too many offensive linemen and too many linebackers, especially with how many linebackers went down this past depth, or with how many linebackers went down this past year. The depth is crucial, and with how I doubt that the offensive line will be a rotating offensive line this year.
Yes, Oh Lord.
But offensive line depth, because I doubt Evan Smith is going to be back. So there's a center guard that's going to be gone. Uh, with Kappa, you don't know. I mean, you know he's going to be back, but you don't know what he's going to bring to the table.
Yeah.
So I think with the middle rounds, I would go with. I wouldn't really go with any skills position players because I feel like we're covered in that area.
Yeah. Well,
And
with the new coaches come new schemes, right? So, and this is what makes it so difficult to predict because what we've seen as successes in Dirk Cutter's system, guys who have thrived in that system, they may not thrive in another system for whatever reason. And I wonder, you would think that Bruce Arians and his coaches will be looking for more than just splash plays and other things. They're looking for what guys can do that fits what the kinds of schemes that they do. What are the attributes? Do they see certain moves? Do they see certain ways of going about their business on the football field that they think can translate into their scheme? So it may make things more complicated there, but calling a spade, this defensive secondary was not good.
yeah,
So I would be shocked if we didn't hit that hard, at the very least in the draft, safety or corner. So, and you mentioned this before we went live as we're talking about the secondary. Vernon Hargreaves, do you think that we should give him another shot this year, or do you think he's done?
well, I actually I'm thinking about starting a blog, and one of my first pieces is I'm gonna write about this. What if on draft day, because we're at the number 5 spot, and I'm guessing this is if Gerald McCoy is still on the team, so we don't draft Ed Oliver. We trade back with Jacksonville. Dwayne Haskins is still on the board, and so is Kyler Murray. And we trade with the Jaguars for Jalen Ramsey, and we swap Vernon Hargreaves for Jalen Ramsey,
Wow.
or we just straight up Jalen Ramsey the pick, and we give him say like a third rounder or fourth rounder or something.
That would be incredible.
But
I doubt that would happen, but that would be incredible.
depending on how bad on Haskins, because they do need a quarterback drastically.
Yeah, that's true.
And because the Giants are linked, I mean, Dwayne Haskins has already posted that picture on Twitter of him in a Giants uniform.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Fantasy trades aside, I think, man, that would be great. I don't think the Jaguars want to get rid of Ramsey like has been reported. I really do think they are. It's one of those things where, like how we've held on to Hargraves and given him a lot of chance just because he's a first round pick. And honestly, Noah Spence because he's a second round pick. I feel like Jalen Ramsey, they're putting up with a lot of his lip. Number one, because he had a great rookie season. But number two, because he was a first round pick and they've seen the glimpse and they would just be dumb to get rid of him. They would. And I think they know it. So I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately.
That's why I think the only reason they would is if they could trade him straight up for another corner that they got that went in the same round. That would be the only reason.
Yeah, there would be. The thing is, though, is that, Vern has not put on the tape that Ramsey has. Now, there may be a trade-off here, and again, we don't know what coaches look for in film. The trade-off is like, okay, you have all-pro potential corner, perennial all-pro, for a guy who might be good, but hasn't had a whole lot of chances because he's been hurt, and then also showed signs of not being all that great. So,
but it moves you up to that 5th spot to get Dwayne Haskins above the Giants.
Yeah, which that is definitely extra incentive for them. So, I don't know. Crazier things have happened.
You're more right. Mine is a pipe dream to get Ramsey because I want Ramsey. Because I know Mr. Peterson is out of the deal, which, although because I said David Johnson, if we traded for him, that would be a cap hit. If we traded for Patrick Peterson, there is no cap hit for Arizona. So that is a possibility.
Yeah.
But a very long, distant possibility.
Yeah, I think I, I would love to see Pat P here. He's like David Johnson. I love Pat P. I think he's a great glue locker room guy, but I think Arizona has no interest in getting rid of him too. I've seen reports where they like have doubled down on their commitment to Patrick Peterson being there. So yeah, Brent from the Pewtercast is in the chat room, and he's been chatting up, and he brings up a good point about Vernon Hargraves. Is that this is the last year of his contract, so to speak, because he does have an option, a 5th-year option, being a first-round guy. So the question might be, will they pick up his 5th-round option? And that goes into predicting how this season's going to go for Vernon Hargraves, because unless we trade Vernon, he's going to be back. And also, unless his injury lingers and he doesn't recover. And we'll see how these coaches use him. But do you think that he's not? Do you think that he can pull himself out? Like, what is your observation on his play?
Oh, I think he could have a breakout year in this defense with how aggressive he is. I think he could have a breakout year. But I think that MJ Stewart might be able to break him out, might be able to beat him out in the nickel position.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting thing here, because Vernon did great in the nickel position, and he struggled on the outside for the most part. The question is did MJ struggle at nickel, and did Vernon struggle on the outside because of the system? Now, more so in Vernon's case, the whole playing 5 yards, 10 yards off the receiver, however much cushion he was giving receivers. We saw a lot of players doing that and failing at that. Really, the only player that did that well was Brent Grimes. And I just wonder if we don't give another shot to Vernon on the outside, keeping MJ or even Javian or somebody on the inside of the nickel, and giving him another chance on the outside to prove himself. Because right before Vernon went down, he was playing well. Both this past year and the year before that, he was playing well on the outside, and then he got hurt. And it's like it showed those glimpses, and it kind of gives me hope. But so for me, I guess my answer to my own question is, I'm glad he has this year to prove himself, number one as a Gator fan, but also as a Bucs fan. But I still feel like he can, like you said, he could have a breakout year, and I think he could do it at outside corner in a different scheme.
I think with him being able to play up closer to the line and be physical, like especially Carlton Davis, I think it's going to help out Ryan Smith too, because when Ryan Smith came in for Grimes in that, what was that, the Chicago game?
Yeah.
Or no, not the Chicago game, Pittsburgh game.
Oh, right.
He balled out.
Yeah.
And then they took him out or put him back in. I mean, we used to talk crap about Ryan Smith at the beginning of the season and how bad he was. But Ryan Smith came into his own eventually, so we'll see what he turns into next season. But I think with Carlton Davis being able to bump, and I think you're right with Hargraves being able to play on the outside, and the new scheme, it should let him have a breakout year.
And Vernon has the potential, I feel like, to be a ball hawk kind of guy. And I really do feel like the system was holding him back from letting him play his game. He's a great press corner, and seeing him do so well at Florida, and then I saw how he played at Florida. I've seen him play in Tampa. It's just been inconsistent. And we all know Mike Smith's scheme was horrible. And I really wish that Vernon didn't get hurt last year so he could play under Mark Duffner, and seeing how that would have changed things. But we will get that last year under Vernon, and we'll see how it goes and see if we pick up his option on top of that. So is there any other guy like Vernon that's kind of on the chopping block that you feel like he's done, we should dump him? I know you've mentioned Donovan Smith, we've mentioned Quan. Obviously, we have guys on the offensive line like, DeMar Dotson is old. Like, is there anybody else that you just kind of want to see either off this team, or he needs to prove it, or else?
Caleb.
Definitely Caleb. Yeah. honestly, I feel like he needs to be out, and then no prove it.
Yeah, that's an easy one, but I don't know because I value loyalty so much that it's hard. It's hard to want to say who I want to get rid of. But Caleb Benenoch it's just so hard to not. Gosh, how bad can you be?
Yeah.
Serious. I mean, I can't imagine being in the huddle, being Jameis in the huddle and looking at him and just saying, what do you say to him?
It's really unbelievable. I mean, imagine being like Alex Kappa and Evan Smith, losing reps to a guy who does so poorly. I don't understand that, and I'm sure that didn't do great for the locker room, honestly, because I'm sure they saw it on film week after week, like we saw it, and then they still trotted him out there. It's baffling. I definitely think that guys like Jacquizz Rodgers will be gone, like the dirt cutter guys. I probably, obviously Conti's probably gone.
Will fit the system. He was Cutters. He was one of Cutters' guys.
Yeah.
Same with Rodgers.
So, as we wrap things up, I want to hear it from you. Like, where's your hype level for this team? And we'll give it a 1 to 10. And then, what's your prediction for the record next year? Just kidding. Don't do that. But how do you feel like? Are you pumped? Are you cautious? Like, give me your gauge on this next season, because there's a lot to go through, man. We got free agency next month, and then we've got draft season, and we're gonna see a lot more big changes on this team.
I've been a Bucs fan since '95, so I've seen a lot. I haven't seen it all, but every year, you get up, you build up the hype, and you want to believe the hype. And I'm going to continue to believe the hype. I'm 10 for 10.
Nice.
I believe in Aaron. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying it's so hard as a Bucs fan, especially after being beaten down for over a decade, about hype. And I think back to all the different years that we had reasons to be hyped up. Does this feel different to you than those previous years?
It does, because the last time I got close to being this hyped up was when Lovey came in, and he was talking about how we're going to bring in the cover 2, and like I said, I was still in the military when he was around, when he was coming in, so I wasn't able to follow them that much, but the way that the media was making it seem like that the players were loving him, and I mean, I know they were and everything, but it was going to change this around. So I was believing in the hype, and this is like that, but tenfold. So, and with how the media is portraying with what Arians his system he brought in, or not his system, but his staff, with bringing in Todd Bowles, they're saying that's bringing in a head coach as your defensive coordinator, is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's different this year because, okay, so we had reason to be hyped up after the 9-7 year. I was like, oh, we finally have a winning record. We can move forward. We're gonna get better than we were last year, and then we disappoint. Hard knocks and all that stuff. And then the next season, we've been humbled a bit, but there was still reason to be hyped up because we felt like that previous year was an anomaly. I did a whole video on how it was the season of Murphy's Law, and we just had bad luck. And then this year it was the same record, and you can only be beaten down so many times. But the reason I feel like this is different is because it's a coach who's been there, as a coach who's done it and has proven that he can do it on multiple teams. And we haven't had that since John Gruden. So while this team may not have a winning record next year, it's got to be a better team. It just has to be. And what's funny is I told myself I would not fall into the hype this year, And then we hired Bruce Arians, and I was like, dang it, that was the one thing that was going to get me hyped up. So, I.
Well,
I think just it's different this time. Other than saying it's a different type of coach, that I can't give any other clout to it, and people might laugh at me for it.
well, like all these teams are going after all these young coaches, wanting this next Sean McVay. He's the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
At the start of the divisional playoffs, 7 of the 8 coaches were over the age of 50. Sean McVay was the only coach. He grew up in football.
Yeah.
The man, as soon as he graduated college, was an assistant coach or graduate assistant at his alma mater, or I believe at his alma mater. But either way, he's been in coaching since he got out of college.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been in a leadership role ever since then. So,
well, on top of that, and this is a good kind of tangent, but I'll tie it back to the Bucs, and we'll wrap this up in a second, guys. But I feel like this is a good point, and this is helping me kind of externally process why I'm excited. So I'm big on, and I mentioned before how the behind the scenes looks, and obviously we can only guess as to how it is in the locker room, the culture, and all that. And Sean McVay, the approach that he took, and what was so attractive for him, was that he came in and he looked at the rest of the league. And he was like, okay, head coaches come in and they control everything. That's what they do. But he decided instead to have humility and hired a former NFL head coach to be his defensive coordinator and said, hey, you take care of the defense because I'm going to stick to what I know. I'm going to stay with my strength. And I'm going to admit that I don't know everything about running an entire team. I'm only 31 years old, or however old he was when he got hired. And exercised that humility, allowed for his assistant coaches to pour into him. He trusted them, and then got the trust out of them for that, and then got the trust out of his players for it. So I bring that up because Bruce Arians, when you look at interviews for him, and you watch All or Nothing on Amazon Prime, and you watch The Football Life, he exhibits humility, and he has a sense of pride about him that is very Dungy-esque, where it is a respectable pride. And the fact that he is willing to sit back and not, if you've ever watched The Football Life on him, he became a head coach so late in his life because he refused to politic. He refused to get an agent and make calls and stuff. He wanted to make it on his merit alone, and that's why it took so long. And that shows the kind of character that he has. And then combine that with seeing how he worked with the Cardinals and how everybody loved him with the Colts and the Cardinals. I mean, it's just a different kind of coach than we've had. John Gruden was young and fiery and arrogant in a great way, but also in a terrible way. Raheem Morris was too young and in over his head and became best friends with the players. Greg Schiano was too much of a dictator and treated everybody like children. Lovie Smith was too hard-headed and wouldn't change his ways at all. And then you had Dirk Cutter, who, for whatever reason, just could not get enough. I don't know if it was respect or whatever it was, but he could not fuel his player. He could not fire his players up to victory. You know what I'm saying? Like, he could not lead them there for whatever reason. But you have Bruce Arians come in, where he's proven he can do all of that. So and he can make it better, and he can lead people to victory and believe in them, and then get their respect, get their trust, without being overly dictatorial, without being their best friend. And it just seems like it's a perfect storm kind of situation for us.
Oh yeah. And I liked in his Football Life when he was it was like a short interview clip in Arians of Football Life when he was talking about, he's like, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the whole, like, yell at him now, hug him later kind of thing. And that type of leadership doesn't work in every walk of life, every area, every career. But it definitely works in football.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about him. So somebody said it in the chat room, if Bruce Arians can't turn this team into a winner, we just need to relocate the team. because I really feel like that. I mean, it seems like a last ditch effort. Like if he can't do it, nobody can, and I'm just gonna be miserable the rest of my life.
Yeah. I hope not.
All right. Well, anyway, that's my soapbox. I'll get off it. And Tommy, thanks so much for joining me for this stream. And again, thank you so much for you've been a subscriber for a super long time. You talk with me on Twitter all the time, and I always enjoy it. I love all the things you have to say, and I'm excited for your new channel. We're gonna break down film and everything. Everybody needs to follow Tommy right now at All Hands Galley. You see it right there on the screen. Follow him on Twitter, and you'll see when he brings up the channel, and he'll bring some good stuff, and you guys can follow the team a lot better, a lot closer, and be more informed. Tommy, do you have any departing words?
Not much, guys. Just the channel will be up in a couple of months. Sorry for the delay. I'm in the process of moving, but I'll be breaking down game film. Most likely, it'll start during the season, but I'll be breaking down some more game film of this past season, things that went right and wrong, and who we pick up in free agency, what they did right, game film on them, videos about that, and should be exciting. Like Corey said, my Twitter handle is All Hands Galley. Look forward to seeing you guys.
Awesome. Thanks again, Tommy. And thanks to you guys for joining. It is the off season, so, videos are going to be on and off for me. I kind of convinced my wife to let me go full heart, full headed into the regular season so I can have regular videos. But, once that's over, it's like, okay, I give my time back to my wife and my family. We just bought a house, so things are crazy. And there's a whole backstory to that where that might fall through. So anyway, there's a lot going on in my life, but I will try my best to put out some more live streams, maybe some more videos in studio. But I appreciate you guys for joining me in the chat and joining Tommy in the chat for over an hour. Glad we kept you guys for that long. And as always, you can follow me at The Play Reaction if you haven't on Twitter and on Instagram. Not as active on there, but I'm there. And if you're following me there, you can find out when the next video is up. So, all right, guys, let's get ready for the Super Bowl. Hey, what's your Super Bowl prediction real quick, Tommy?
Rams 38, Patriots 24.
I love it. I think the Patriots are going to take it, but I hope the Rams do. I think the Patriots are going to take it just because that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, I really don't want to go against the GOAT, but I just...
yeah.
9 Super Bowls? Come on now.
Yeah, it just needs to end already. It just needs to end. So we'll see. And I will say this. The last time the Rams won a Super Bowl, it was in the city of Atlanta. So there you go. That's my tidbit I'm going to leave. So maybe this will be a nice bookend to end the dynasty. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. And as always, go Bucs. And, hey, go Rams. See you guys.